Welcome to Plants, Pests and Pathogens. I'm Ariyah April, Program Assistant for the NC State Extension Master Gardener Program. Today happens to be the final episode of our 2025 season of PPP. That means we're going to hear from Matt Bertone and Mike Munster in Critter or Not. I hope you're ready for an equally fun, informative episode because Matt and Mike will examine intriguing samples submitted to the NC State Plant Disease and Insect Clinic. They'll also cover our BOLOs, or the timely plant pests and diseases to be on the lookout for. We're also going to hear from Charlotte Glen, Program Manager of the NC State Extension Master Gardener Program. Charlotte will present the Plant Bees for Pollinators features on Aster, along with some statewide program announcements. After we wrap up today, we hope you share your feedback on the 2025 season of Plants, Pests, and Pathogens. You're going to see here the link to the evaluation form. You can also scan the QR code with the camera on your smartphone. We're going to send this eval link out with today's recording and resources when they're ready. Your feedback is so important to us. It helps us improve and plan our next seasons, and it lets us know what you find most useful to learn about on PPP. Now let's get to today's presentation, Critter or Not. Matt Bertone is the director of the NC State Plant Disease and Insect Clinic, where he focuses on tools and techniques for the identification of arthropods, particularly insects. And Mike Munster is the plant disease diagnostician for commercial ornamentals at the clinic. I'll hand it off to you now, Matt.
Great. Thanks, Ariyah. All right, so it's the end of the year, and as tradition follows, it's time to play everyone's favorite game, Critter or Not. So Mike is going to start out and give us an introduction.
Yes, good morning, everyone. We realized that the way we had structured the question in Critter or Not was a little bit, logically defective. So we're going to remedy that by asking you not one, but two questions for each of the scenarios or cases that we're going to present. So after showing a photo or two and explaining what's going on, we're going to pop up, or you're on your screen, you will see pop up this double question. First, asking whether what you're seeing is or is the result of a critter, a microbe, or not. And the second question will be whether or not it's a pest or non-pest, a foe or a friend, or possibly neutral. So just to give you the details of how you would decide in each case, if it's an insect, mite, spider, aka arthropod, mollusk, or some vertebrate animal, or their damage or structures produced by them, then you check critter. If it's a fungus, bacterium, virus, nematode, or some structure produced by them or damage produced by one of those, then you choose microbe. And if it's none of the above, it's either some kind of a plant part or environmental stress causing an interesting situation, cultural issues, genetic abnormalities, anything that's not one of the two prior categories gets classified as not. Then the second question, which is always of interest to folks, is, am I looking something that's a plant pest, or is it a non-pest? Is it a foe, or is it a friend, or something neutral? And we're going to take the point of view of the plant here. So for example, if it were a wasp, you might say, oh, that's a pest because it might sting me. But as far as the plant is concerned, it's maybe even a pollinator, maybe even controlling some kind of a caterpillar pest. So in that case, it would be a friend or perhaps neutral in terms of the plant. So when you answer the second question, think in the shoes, so to speak, of the plant itself. Please keep track of your score as we go along. Keep separate tallies for each question. So you have a column for how you're doing on first question in each case and how you're doing on the pest versus non-pest question. If you're in a group of folks watching together, playing bridge, having sandwiches, whatever, then have somebody be the designated person to take the vote on who the majority says, or what the majority says is the answer, and record that as your result. And without further ado.
Yeah, and actually, Mike, I just wanted to add, just to make sure that that was clear what you said. When we tally at the very end, we're only going to keep track of the first part of the question of each of the questions. So anyway, but keep score for both questions just to see how you all do. All right, Mike, you ready?
I'm always ready for this.
And you're starting then, huh?
No, I think you were starting. I thought,
Okay,
oh
I'll
yeah,
start. Yeah.
yeah, I was doing the intro and then you were doing the first and I was doing the second like that.
All right, sounds good. All right, this was from October this year. This was from Andrew Pfeiffer, and this massive gall was found attached to an Ipomia lacunosa. It's almost 3 inches long. So this was on the petiole of this morning glory. And so, is this a critter or not? And we'll give everyone about 30 seconds to chime in. So please be quick in your responses, but take a little bit of time just to think about it. But we want to make sure this goes along smoothly and we can get through all of these really weird and interesting cases. So it's a dead heat. So it looks like a dead heat for the number first question.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You can't see what's happening, but we're seeing in real time how the bars are kind of fluctuating
Yeah.
as the votes come in.
All right, we're gonna give everybody 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3. Up. Is that everyone? No, 2, 1. All right, we're gonna end the poll there, and we're gonna share the results. Okay, so we've got the critter just slightly outcompetes microbe, which just slightly outcompetes not, and then people are saying it's some kind of plant pest. 55% of people are saying that, and only 45% saying non-pest. Okay. So let's see what it is. So it is a critter and it is a plant pest technically. The plant does not probably want this critter growing in here, but I asked Andrew to cut it open. He did, and there were all these cells. And I found out on gallformers.org, a really good website for any kind of galls that you're not sure about, that there is a gall midge that creates galls in Ipomia that look like this. It's a petio gall, and it's in the genus Neolasioptera. So anyway, this would have been full of a bunch of maggots that emerged to be little flies. So, as far as I know, as far as I can tell. Okay, we're gonna go on to the next one then.
So number 2, there were a couple of photos that Lucy Bradley herself, who many of you know, sent to me by email, and they were found in the soil where her ornamental sweet potatoes had been. You remember from her pictures when she did the presentation this year, she had these beautiful beds. Anyways, found this in the bed where the ornamental sweet potatoes were growing. And with this comment, there are several of the small fleshy balls split in half in the photo, that photo showing in a moment, and tons of the white nodules. They are lighter than the dense root knot nematodes I have seen in other gardens. Lots of wood chips used in this area. Any idea from the image? The sweet potatoes were thriving and seemed to have a healthy root system. Should I try to remove it all? And if we go to the second photograph of the situation.
Yep. Yeah.
And so, yep.
Sorry, I
let me
lost
hit this
the
button. No worries.
poll.
Jump the gun on that.
I
Hold
didn't
on.
realize another picture was coming.
No worries. Well, it's all right, Charlotte. We'll say critter or not when it's time to launch the poll.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay. You may just
Okay.
leave this one open?
Yep.
Or stop
Well,
it
I
and
just close it off, close it down. So
Okay.
so we'll relaunch that. Everybody that was right on the trigger was good too. So okay, Mike, continue.
Well, I'm still watching. Oh, I'm still watching results come in. So
Okay. Oh, you might have to end the poll then. I just closed it down on my screen, I think. So
all right.
all right.
Somebody ended it. I'll go ahead and share the results. Or do you want me to?
Okay. But
Let's just
maybe
roll with
relaunch it. Give everybody. Okay. Let's roll with it. Okay. So I'm gonna continue, and then this. Let's see. So are we good? Are we shared everybody's results? It didn't look like everybody submitted, so that's why I wanted to relaunch. But
because
yeah.
people got. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Let's just relaunch real quick. Okay. So, and then let me make
But
sure
we
I
have to
can
say
get.
critter or not. It's not valid.
I'm trying to.
All right.
There you go. Okay.
Critter or not.
Yeah. Now we can launch it. All right. Everybody's
All
chomping
right.
at the bit. I know to do this. All right. So you are now free to answer.
Yes. So if you answered before with our
Yeah, Charlotte. I'll just have that
premature
little
launch,
stamp.
you'll need to
That little.
answer again.
Yep. when the stamp comes up, you're free to launch the poll.
All right.
No worries.
Thought I was anticipating it, but
I know you were excited. You were just very excited to see what everybody
I
wanted to
am. I'm
say.
on the edge of my seat, just waiting to reach time.
Okay, we'll give this another 10 seconds or so. Looks like a lot of people have answered. Oh, 100% have answered. So I guess everybody was super ready. So I guess we'll end it and we'll share the results. Okay, so we have most people saying microbe, 79% saying that, and non-pest, friend or neutral, 69% people are saying. So let's see what it is. It is.
Yeah, that was a landslide there. Indeed, it is a microbe, it's a fungus of some kind. And you could tell that based on the ones that were cut open, which are presumably the same as the smaller lumps as well. At first, I thought this was some kind of a stinkhorn fungus, but then Mark Kubera, one of our macrofungi experts here, said that he thought maybe it was one of the secotioid fungi. And I had to look that up. But what that means is basically ones that are related to the guild fungi or BOLOs, but they don't completely open up. And you can see some kind of folded up, distorted gills there within this structure. So we don't know exactly what one this is. We may never know, but it is a fungus. Again, presumably that all those are the same thing. And it would be something that's a saprobe. So decaying that organic matter. They mentioned, or Lucy mentioned about all the wood chips that were used. So that's delicious food for some fungi and not harming, as was her observation, the sweet potatoes. However, she also sent as a comparison a photo of galls caused by root knot nematodes. These are not the nematodes themselves you're observing, but they would be inside those galls and have triggered the plant to produce them. So these are going to be denser. They're going to be connected to roots rather than to strands of fungal mycelium.
Okay. All right, on to the next one. All right, so this is a Laura Petalum from Pitt County from August 2025. And so the person said, looking for a root cause of the problem so that customer will know whether the issue could spread to other plants. And so we have this photo of it, of the symptoms there. And just to give you a little bit closer up view, this is what we're looking at. So on the stem of this Laura Petalum, what do we have? Is this a critter or not? A lot of fun watching them come in.
It is.
So, all right. And I guess we have about 130 people. So actually, if we get, or how many people do we have? 174. Okay. So, okay, we'll give it another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And all right. So we will stop it and share. Okay, so we've got just edging out critter. We got with 44%. We've got microbe and a plant pest with 62%. So
Well, wait a second, man. Just edging out. If that had been a
that's
vote
fine.
tally in an election, right? They would have said, no, it was a landslide. That's a 13% difference. I
Okay,
think your bias toward critters is coming out here. That
it's fine.
it
It's
was
fine.
it was well beating out the critter in this case.
Okay, so all right, so we've got microbe and plant pest. All right, and so what is it?
Well,
It is.
the
There you go.
plurality had it right here. So this
Yeah.
is the result of a microbe, and the diagnosis was made possible by the fact of the plant host itself, because we have seen over the last several years from time to time this show up, and it's a disease that has the wonderful name of Loropetalum knot, KNOT, caused by a bacterium, Pseudomonas amygdalae, pathovar loropetalii. And that pathovar just means that within a species, it's specific to a certain host, in this case to Loropetalum. So the answer to the question that the client posed, can it spread to other plants? Yes, but only, as far as I know, to Loropetalum. September 6th, 2025. I was pruning my bushes on Sunday and was bitten on my legs and corner of an eye. Today I pulled the weed, and on the backside was this weird looking insect. I can't find a reference on it. If you have time and can tell me what it is, I appreciate it.
All right. So we have these photos, and then I think I have another one. All right. So
Critter
critter or not.
or not?
Critter's just edging out microbe with 98% of the responses. All right.
Yes, the real question here is whether or not it was a pest.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're gonna close it out there. Let's end the poll and share the results. All right. So we have a majority of people, 96% of people are saying it's a critter, and 64% are saying it's a non-pest, friend, or neutral. And it looks like some people might have guessed what this is or figured out, but it is a critter and is a non-pest, unless they bite or invade your home. But to the plant, it's a non-pest. It's a friend. It's eating the bugs, the aphids and such. And these are the shed larval skins of a ladybug after it pupates. And so if we go back real quick, you can see these empty pupal skins, and this is just the remnant shed skin of the last larva. And you can see that here. Then this is what the pupa looks like, and it kind of unwraps the larval skin and it kind of sloughs off to the base of the pupa as an attachment point, and so you get those remnant skins, and those are the pupal skins. So larval skin, pupa, ladybug will come out, and there'll be a pupal skin and a larval skin there. A lot of complex descriptions for something pretty simple. Okay.
Question from
Yes.
Susan Sorrells that
Okay.
was that what bit her?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. No, shouldn't have bitten. The pupae can't bite, and the larvae wouldn't bite like that. The adults can bite, but it's probably something incidental. So probably just got stung by something or bit by something else, looked over, saw these things, and kind of asked about it. So yeah, very good question. All right, let's move on to the next one.
I think you're up.
Am I up? Okay. Client captured insects using tape for photos. Samples were collected off of concrete wall. Client said same thing was on plants, but not affecting them last year. Alrighty, so is this a critter or not? All right, Mike, you let me know when you want to end this poll.
All right, we're up to 66, 70. It seems like
Yeah.
we've been doing it around the 75%. Things kind of slow down. So,
Okay.
and
All
we're
right.
stagnant at 76, 77 right now. Let's see if we can push
All
it
right.
to 80. Come on, 2 more percentage people.
uh, that's all right. We're not gonna get. I don't know if we're gonna get there. Up
79.
79.
Yes,
All right.
yes, we can.
Real quick, anybody want to get there?
Yes,
Okay, wait.
80%.
All right. Let's share results. All right.
All right. Yes. Well, as you can see, Critter just edged out Microbe here, 56% to 20, but even not edged out Microbe. But that's unfortunate. We'll see why. And non-pest, though, that was a clear winner there. And so it was actually a microbe. It's a fungal structure here and a non-pest, although a nuisance in our mulched landscape sometimes. But these are the peridioles, or the small spore-bearing packets of a bird's nest fungus, not necessarily the same species here, but these will be splashed out of the cups by water, and they stick to different surfaces. So you may see them above areas, especially that'll have the wood mulch.
All right. Good one. All right. I think you're presenting the next one.
Not much to say here. Photos from Lisa Rayburn, petiole of a cucurbit, looks like a squash of some kind. And there are these small structures in a line running up and down. Critter or not?
All right, is 80% our goal, our new goal now? Or should it be 85%, 95%? No.
We battled to get 80%. I think
Yeah,
that's
75% might be. Oh, there we go. Look at this. We might be good. All right, we'll give it maybe another 10 seconds or so. Feel free to count in your head. All right. Once we get up, we dropped from 79 to 78. That's
what
strange.
happened.
Somebody retracted. So, all right, we're at 80. Let's end that poll and we'll share the results. All right, we've got 67% saying critter with less microbe and not, and then plant pests or foe at 70% and non-pest at 30%. All right, what do we have here? So these are critters, and they're soon to be critters, let's just say. They are eggs of a leaf-footed bug in the genus Leptoglossus, and these will be plant pests. They feed on the plants, often the seeds of plants. They'll lay their eggs on all different surfaces and other plants that aren't even host plants. But the interesting thing is that they typically lay them in these rows. They're barrel-shaped, and you can see the little circular operculum where the nymph will pop out. But what's interesting about the previous photo is they lay the eggs end to end usually, but what I think happened is the stalk grew or the petiole grew, and as the plant grew, those spread out. So it looked very strange compared to typically what you would see for leaf-footed bug eggs like this. So anyway, that was a fun one. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right. Picture of flat swarm. That's what I got in the email. This was actually from Texas near the Gulf of Mexico in Galveston. So I'm not talking about the plant here, but what's behind it. So is this a critter or not? And I probably should, I'll just, yeah.
And
Hopefully
let me
people can
just
see it.
point out that the S on the keyboard and the W on the keyboard are right next to one another. So
All right.
I'm not going to hold it against him for typing flat storm instead of flat
I'm not
worm.
either. I'm so bad lately. I mean, my typos are bad. So, all right. Is this a flat storm though? A picture of a flat storm. Okay. We are at 53%. Okay. People are equivocating over it. I shouldn't have put the critter over the actual critter, not stamp over it. So hopefully you all saw it before we launched the poll. But all right, this one people are, I think it seems like they're equivocating about. There's only 70% right at the moment, and we should probably move on. So I'm gonna end the poll there. And so we've got critter at 68%, microbe at 13%, not at 20%, and then plant pest at 39%, whereas non-pest came out above at 61%. So majority are saying critter and a non-pest. And so that was actually kind of a red herring to give you that subject line, because it is not anything. It's not a pest, because it's remnants of glue on a plant pot that may look like a flatworm. So this is what an actual flatworm looks like, a hammerhead worm, and you can see it looks same color, similar kind of shape, but sometimes these plant pots are kept together with glue or whatnot, and it was just remnants of human adhesives there. So anyway, it was funny one and looks very much like a flatworm, or not a flat storm though either. But yeah, so there you go. All right, on to the next one.
Quote, I had a homeowner send me this photo and said these jelly-like things were all over his windowsills and driveway earlier this week, but washed away with the rain, so he could not get me a photo for scale. Any thoughts on what this may be? June 19th, 2025. And we have another photograph here.
All right,
no, you wanted to.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know why it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
So let's do critter or not, but yeah, I'll give you a next step after this, but go ahead and answer the poll. Okay. People are excited about this one. All right.
And it is neck and neck.
Oh wow. I know that's a weird one. It's a real weird one. As are all of these, of course, and that's what's fun about it. All right, so let's end the poll there, and then we'll share the results. Okay, so it is pretty neck and neck. Not got the win, just edged out microbe with 37% versus 35%, and critter was the last one. And then as far as plant pests, no, only about 12%, but most people, 88% says non-pest, friend, or neutral. Okay, so let me step next. I'll step to a next thing. So this is the full picture without a cropped, and that reveals a couple of little insects, which is interesting, but they're actually not what's creating this, but they are a clue to what's going on. So these are midges. These are chironomid midges, non-biting midges, very common around water sources, attracted to lights. But what we have here is actually a critter, and it's actually caddisflies that are also aquatic and attracted to lights. What happens is they come to the lights and they sometimes are so excited to dump their eggs into a spot that they'll just dump them somewhere. So these are the jelly masses, the egg masses of caddisflies that are attracted to lights. And normally they would lay those on rocks and foliage, things like that, near or in streams for their larvae to then hatch and be able to survive. So anyway, weird little jelly masses from the eggs of caddisflies.
All right. So the the host here is a beech, American beech, and we're not in this case asking about the wood decay fungus that's growing out of the trunk there. That sort of cascading grayish brown mass there is Globifomes graveolens, which is a wood decay fungus you will see from time to time. And the question that we're posing has to do with the other horn-like structures protruding from that fungal mass. So the question is, critter or not? People are jumping on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess we can't expect to have 100% participation. That's just
That's fine.
unrealistic.
That's
But
fine. I think we're good though. We probably should move fairly quickly. We're going on. So
yeah, it's
okay.
almost 10:30. So
All right. So let's end the poll there, and let's share the results. All right, Mike, you wanna summarize his results?
oh, shoot.
Did you close it? That's all right.
Sorry.
Okay, 59% of people said critter, 33% microbe, and 8% not. And then most people said it was non-pest, friend or neutral, 63% versus 37% plant pest. So this one is interesting. So this is a critter and it's a non-pest. These are the shed pupal skins of a moth. And Andrew, when he submitted it, thought it might be some wood boring moths, some Ceciad clearwing moths, but he mentioned that they're only about 8 millimeters long and they're so abundant in that fungus. They're likely moths that were the caterpillars that were feeding inside the fungus, and then they're pupated out of there. So I don't know what type of moth in particular, but there are many moths that will feed on bracket fungi and other types of decay fungi and things like that, and readily feed on that food source. So anyway, a funny, weird egg mass of bee. I would have loved to have seen all the caterpillars feeding in there and all the moths coming out. So
Now, but your seed moths would do a similar sort of pupal skin on the surface of a trunk, though, would they
exactly.
not?
And that's why it was suspected that it might have been clearwing moths because they will pop out of trees like that. They'll kind of wiggle, the pupil wiggle to the surface, and then the moth will emerge out with leaving the pupal skin there. So it's really good to be on the lookout for those anyway. All right, so let's move on to the next one. All right, I've been spraying my fruit trees over the last few weeks with I don't know what that means, for ant spray, alternating horticultural oil and copper, and have noticed many of these lesions on my peach pear, Asian pear, and apple trees, as well as maples on the property. Usually on the undersides of small branches where may have been stressed by the weight of fruit last season. The apple pear and Asian pear seem to have almost healed and calloused over the lesions, but the tree lesions are turning dark and oozing gelatinous exudate. Can you please help? As fungal, maybe copper. Also, when I prune the fruit trees next month, do I need to prune out all these infections? So I'll be nice and I'll show you the next photo of a little clearer one of these lesions or whatever. And your question, of course, as always, is critter or not. All right. So we will give this maybe another 10 seconds or so.
Looks like people hesitated at first, but then dove in with both feet. So
Okay. All right, so we're going to end that there, I think. Let's end the poll and share the results. Okay. So we've got 43% saying critter, 36% saying microbe, 21% saying not. And then 85% of the people are saying it's a plant pest versus 15%, which makes sense because, there's stuff going on with the plant. So what is this? Well, this was interesting because it was in January of 2025, but it was actually the previous year's cicada damage. So this is where the female cicada laid her eggs in the branch, and they'll do that with random plants, woody plants. We've even seen conifers being used, and they'll just saw into that, laying their eggs along the twig. And most of the time, although it can cause flagging and the gummosis and things like that, many times it does heal over. So it's not always a really severe pest, but it can look strange and can cause weakness in the branches and whatnot. But you can see here it's callousing over pretty well. But again, this is fairly characteristic, especially with the frayed woody material in the center coming out in kind of regular intervals. That's pretty characteristic of cicadas, and especially the year after or very shortly after you have the big emergence of the periodical cicadas. In those years and the following years, you get a lot of this, and then you don't see that for a while as the cicadas aren't around. So, yeah.
And let me mention too that the oozing, they mentioned that the oozing was on the peaches. That is just a reaction that prunus does. And so it's really not diagnostic. Gummosis can be the result of different kinds of problems on prunus, on peaches and other stone fruits. Insect eggs make strange sight near Murphy, North Carolina. Sounds like a headline from a tabloid on the supermarket line. Field notes: Martins Creek is a 20-foot wide tributary in the Hiawassee River near Murphy. We bought a small farm in spring of 1971, 26 acres, etc. First noticed these strange bands of eggs on bankside briars and hardwood sprouts in early February. Each egg about the size of a BB. Went back today, March 8th, to photograph them, and about half seem to have flown their individual cells. We have had some warm days lately, not surprised, but have seen no hatches of flies. Temp went down to 3 above 0 back in January. May have perished then. Critter or not?
All right, let's see. Let's give it about 5 more seconds. We're probably gonna have to speed these up a little bit more. So everybody be ready when the polls come out and be ready to answer. Okay, so I'm gonna call it there just so we can have
But
time
don't
for everyone.
advance the slide yet.
I won't.
All right.
Okay, so there you go. So we've got 73% saying critter, 19 microbe, 8 not, and then we've got non-pests neutral for 66%, beating out pest at 34%. All right, Mike, what do you think?
So I would like to call attention to one interesting feature of this, which is there's a sort of a spiral nature to the position of those structures on those stems. So that was a clue right there. And second, I want to congratulate the 11 people, the 8% who said not, because what this turned out to be, this is not a picture from that site. This is an old picture that I had, but these were the I guess you call them fruits or seed-bearing structures there of a daughter plant, a parasitic plant, which would have been wrapping around those stems. And he mentioned a couple different kinds of plants affected. Earlier in the year, they have small flowers. The flowers in this photograph are actually of the host plant. They have small flowers and they produce seeds, and those clusters are what they interpreted for eggs. So
Yeah. It was one where I was searching a lot to see if there was any gall that would look like that because I was not familiar with dodder's flower seeds. I know dodder, but I had never seen it fruiting or anything or putting out flowers. So very cool. All right. So let's see, where are we at? Okay, so from the client, September 2025, the pest secretion is just latched onto various plants' leaves, particularly the undersides of the leaves. Some of the plants are decorative, others edible herbs. Does not seem to be hurting the plant. It also appears that the surface of outdoor furniture, I'm assuming plastic, it is hard to remove. I used a power washer. Okay, so we've got this is actually on a fig leaf. And we'll show you a closer up of that, what those structures look like. So that's this. And so the question is, of course, critter or not?
So Matt, you read it is hard to remove, but I'm reading here it is H, hard to remove.
Oh, I didn't see. Yeah, let's see. It is HR to remove. You're right. It is
Hello?
HR to remove. So, all right. So let's see where we're at. All right, we'll give it another 10 seconds. Let's say 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. I am going to end the poll there and share the results. All right. 65% of people are saying it's critter, the majority, 22% microbe, 14% not. And then as far as whether a plant pest or not, most people are saying not a pest, friend or neutral at 64%. So, what is this? This is
A microbe, in fact. It is the spore packet. There are different names. Oh, glebal mass, I think, is my favorite term for it, of the artillery fungus, Spherobolus. So if you remember from back in February when we talked about a scientific name, so Spherobolus, we looked that up. So spherical lump, basically, and it pretty well describes what we were looking at there. But it was ejected from a inconspicuous kind of a bird's nest type fungus that would have been down there in the mulch. But in this case, it's not just rain splash, it's actually shot out of the fruiting body and toward bright or light colored surfaces. And that's the name where the name artillery fungus comes from. It is not a plant pest, so it's not going to damage those herbs or ornamentals. It is, though, a great annoyance when it gets on siding of houses or cars, things like that, because it is so difficult to remove the stain underneath. You can remove that believable mass, but the stain underneath is pretty persistent. So yeah,
okay. All right. I think this one's yours, Mike.
it is. Oh, okay, sorry.
Hmm.
We may have something similar on a white oak that is 30 to 50 feet away from the silver maple, but the tops of some of the oak leaves look white, unlike the maple leaves. Silver maple, May 18th, 2025.
So guess what? Your question is, it is critter or not? All right. This one's a fairly even one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good thing we didn't cut this one out because when we
I
had
know.
to, we realized that we had so many cases to show and we decided to knock a couple out but we looked at this one and said, let's keep it. I'm sure glad we did.
So I have a question in the chat. Shouldn't a fungus be a non that isn't a microbe actually? Well, we're just kind of lumping them into that group. So they grow kind of microscopically anyway often. So okay, I'm gonna end the poll here. We're gonna share the results. So very close. So 41% say critter, 40% say microbe, and 19% say not. And as far as plant pests versus not, pests is 48, not is 52. So very, very close poll on this one. So what do we have here? This is it is a critter and is technically a plant pest. This is actually the maple form of the woolly alder aphid. And actually, maple is its primary host. So what happens is at this time of year, they're actually winged. They would have been creating winged forms that would go out and mate, would come onto the maples. They would overwinter, stuff like that. They'll be infesting the maple in the spring. And then the next generation, the secondary host, will go to alders. And you can see this one on alder. You can see all the sooty mold. They are very waxy aphids, obviously. That's why they call them woolly. aphids, and they produce a lot of honeydew. So this is technically a plant pest. They're not a severe pests. They're a native one, and they don't really cause a lot of symptoms to the trees, but they can be unsightly and cause a lot of sooty mold. So anyway.
And the astute observer would have noticed a little cluster of yellowish
Yeah, down
eggs
at the
there
bottom left.
on that leaf.
Yep, which were the ladybug eggs. So yeah. Okay, let's move on. All right, this is mine, I guess. I have a copper top viburnum that looks terrible. Also, it looks like the white or mite or fungus or whatever has started to spread the camellia, and the camellia is what we're showing here is next to it. I took the branch in the office around noon today, and they told me to email you and send a bunch of photos. They kept a branch in case you wanted it. First note about 3 weeks ago, treated it 2 times with Captain Jack's neem maxed with 70% neem. This shrub is right off the porch and is irrigated. It sits atop a slight slope. Any help that you can give will be greatly appreciated. And this is from July of 2025. So what we're looking at here is these little yellow spots on the camellia. And we're going to ask, of course, is this a critter or not? All right. I like this one. This is another neck and neck. People are racing to see who's going to be right. It's a tough
Wow,
one.
this is very tight.
Yeah, very tight. All right, we're going to give everybody 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's end this poll and share the results. Okay, so 38% of people thought it was a critter, 41% a microbe, so very close, and 21% not. Although 79% of people said it was a plant pest, the majority over 21% not pest, which makes sense because it's causing chlorosis. But this one really relies on getting the right photos. And at first we did not. We just got all these photos, a huge series of photos like this. And that's great, but we need a few up close and a few, of course, with the undersides of the leaves. And so that's what you should always be asking is what's on the underside or what's up close. And even though this is a little out of focus, these little black spots allude to armored scales and don't look like T scale. They look like they might be camellia scale or another one. But you can see everywhere where there's a brown spot, there is the resulting yellow chlorotic spot on the upper surface of the leaves. So critter and a plant pest. So very good.
And since we
Tough one.
didn't see the viburnum, would viburnum also be a host of this, or maybe that's just something completely unrelated?
The viburnum in this sample had white flies and sooty mold. So 2 separate pests, but both sucking pests. So yeah, and some scales, some armor scales will get on a few different hosts. So it's not out of the question, although T scale, which it's not, would be specific to camellia typically, although it's on holly as well. Okay, next one.
There has been aster yellows in the area in the past, but this doesn't appear to be aster yellows as I know it. It was in our demonstration garden at the extension office. I know county maintenance sometimes spray nearby as this is beside of our parking lot. I have not noticed any other herbicide symptoms on other plants as it is very dense with plants. July 31st, 2025.
All right, so take a look at these flower heads and tell us critter or not. Hope everyone's having fun. I don't know, maybe. People are replying, I guess. They're responding to the polls. So that's a good sign.
I'm developing a Pavlovian response to the critter or not. I'm just so like on the edge, waiting to launch the poll.
You're gonna be clicking the mouse at your desk every time you see critter or not.
Yeah.
All right. Let's end it there, and we'll share the results. So, Mike, you want to summarize this time?
Sure. In this case, critter and microbe were far behind with only 15 and 18% respectively, whereas not carried 2/3 of the vote count. Although the difference between those who said plant pest at 58% was not that much higher than those who said non-pest.
All right. So majority said not, and a bunch said plant pest. Well, this is an interesting one. This is one you also have to investigate a little further. This is actually a critter, and it is a plant pest. This is the coneflower rosette mite, an Ariyah mite. So these photos I've taken, they're much more green, but of course that's probably the color of the cone of the disc and everything. But basically, if you were to cut these open, and we asked the person to do that, cut them in half and look for little tiny cream-colored or white yellowish mites, these little elongate mites, they're standing up on their rears, kind of looking for wind to blow around. These are the mites that cause that distortion. So they infest the flower head. Their saliva causes it to create these spikes, these fleshier spikes, these little forests that they can live in as they feed. And so this is a mite. All right, so let's keep going.
And the observer correctly interpreted this as not typical. This you would not conclude that it was Aster yellows in this case, in part because just part of the head was affected, right?
Yeah, exactly. Part of it also, it's more spiky rather than flower, like leafy. Often the Aster yellows is more green and very vibrant, leafy and stuff. So yeah, okay. All right, next one. Let's see. There we go.
You're up.
Oh, it's me. From the client, fungal leaf spotting observed in container bonsai nursery, particularly in hedge maple and linden tree material, starting in midsummer and becoming worse as cool weather settles in place. Has concentric rings within spots, signaling it's a fungal in nature. To me, it looks like it could be phyllosticta leaf spot. And we'll advance more, I guess, Mike, right? So we've got a close-up. Okay, and then we've got another close-up. All right. So, what does everybody think? Is this a critter or not?
There must have been a little pause there in loading because I thought, wow, crickets. Nobody was answering this.
It could be that it's a weird one. People are unsure. It's funny because when we mention that what people think it is, it's not always correct, but sometimes it is. You don't know. All right. You call it, Mike. You tell me when you call it.
All right. I want to see at least 75 on this one. 73.
Okay.
73.
It's still
Nice.
73.
It is still 73.
All right, come on. We just need a couple more people to respond, and the people are not want to. So, all right. In the interest of time, we'll stop the poll there. Okay. So we've got 50% critter, 47% microbe, 3% not, and most people are saying it's a plant pest or foe at 95%. So, what do we have here? We have
Yeah, if you look under the compound microscope, we showed you a photo or two from the dissecting microscope, but if you look under the compound microscope, this is a very cool fungus that used to be called Crystallariella, and the current name is Grovicinia, Moricola, I would say probably. The disease is called zonate leaf spot. And you notice that it was on different hosts. It was on both the hedge maple and the linden in that particular nursery. So it has multiple hosts, and it does cause that particular leaf spot. It's just, we don't see it very often, but it's very cool to see when it does come in. Critter or not flashback. So the reason for this is we've got a currently pending in progress sample. We're waiting for better photos that reminded us of this situation. It may be the same thing, but it's worth going back to the archives in May of 2022 and seeing this, where the client said, the insect I saw looked like a small red spider, not sure what it was. The rosemary is very sticky. Could the red thing be an egg or casing? So critter or not?
all right. Let's see.
It's been so long, but Matt, do you remember whether we made the final determination on this one with a physical sample or based on the photos?
That I forget. Didn't look at this actual sample when we were reviewing this, but okay. Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to end the poll there. I'll share the results. So,
Hey, yes, the critter has squeaked out over microbe, 80% to 7%, with 13% is not, and a slight majority saying that it was a pest. Interesting enough, who's going to talk about this one?
Yeah, whatever. Go for it.
All right. Yeah, so this was not either a critter or a microbe. This was actually seeds from a very common little weed called wood sorrel or oxalis. The photograph here is not one of ours. It's actually from probably farther west, but the structure would be similar, where you've got the capsules that hold the seeds and then they're forcibly discharged. And when magnified,
I know. Let's see. Come on. There we go. Look very convincingly like little critters, but very beautiful little seeds that oxalis has. It's a good plant. I like it.
oh boy. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty plant. It's a cool little one.
Yeah,
Very good.
so yeah, this one I can see somebody is maybe more than one participant here is questioning our non-pest categorization of this. So yeah, I would categorize it the best myself. It does it's not a good competitor probably against the plants, but it's certainly something I don't like weeding out of my gravel.
Yeah. Okay. I'll accept that. All right. Luckily, we're not scoring that one. All right. So, or not scoring that part of the question. All right. So let's go. We got a couple more, I think, real quickly. Let's do this, and then we can get to some bolos. I'm sure everybody's having fun. So, okay. So, I need to clarify the cause of the problem on the camellia, so homeowner will know if there's a need to prevent spreading to other plants. And this is from August of this year. So, seeing that camellia, what is this? Is this a critter or not? Okay. Charlotte, are you gonna? Are we posting the poll yet? Oh, there we go. Good.
I don't know. I missed that one.
No worries.
I was actually focused so much. I was really looking at what's on the stems because I have a couple of options in mind of what it could be, and I see that.
And I see some people might be having trouble accessing the poll, but yeah, write down your answers. If you had the key at the very beginning, that's good. And yeah, just play along. So, in the interest of time, we'll give it about 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So this one, we have 21% saying critters, 56, the majority saying microbe, and 24% saying not. And very neck and neck for plant pest versus non-pest. This is 51% versus 49% pest versus non-pest. Okay, and what we have here is actually a critter. It is a bird. This is the gouging out of the bark from sapsuckers, yellow-bellied sapsucker woodpeckers. And technically a plant pest, they can girdle the tree completely and kill the top above it, but oftentimes their feeding their damage heals over. Though in many plants they'll just drill a row of holes, but I've seen in other types of plants, especially smooth barked plants, they'll either gouge out little kind of grids or these horizontal lines, which get to be a little strange looking, especially on camellias. I seem to see that. But anyway, yeah, this yellow-bellied sapsucker woodpecker damage on a camellia.
Which would only have been there at certain times of year in North Carolina.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have 2 more. So you want to?
Several arborvitae next to a building are turning yellow and dropping twigs. October 2025, Wake County.
All right.
Critter?
Is critter or not?
Oh, wait, critter or not?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Debbie Dillon says, not seeing the slide.
Somebody needs a close-up? Oh, this is all you're getting. Like us sometimes. All right. Sorry, Debbie. I'm not sure why you're not seeing the slides. Okay. Well, in the interest of time, we're going to give it about a couple more seconds and then we'll stop.
You know, I think the results here are a testament to the effectiveness of plants, pests, and pathogens as a program.
All right. So we've got 13% critter, 19% micro, but the majority, 67% say not. And it is kind of split almost plant pest versus non-pest, 45 to 55. But what do we have here? So this is not a non-pest. So this is just natural senescence and shedding of older twigs of these arborvitae. So although they are evergreen, they are not immortally green or green forever. The twigs and the foliage and things like that will age out after a few years. I don't know how long it is, right? Like 2 or 3 years. They have a cycle usually. Pines will lose their needles as well naturally. And so because the distribution was kind of uniform over the tree, the tips are still green. There's a lot of evidence that this is natural kind of shedding of the twigs. So anything else you want to add there, Mike?
The question there was enhanced by drought, question mark. I don't know. So this building actually is our building. And we had really unusual weather as we do every year, but in this case, it was very rainy for a while and then very dry for a while. So I don't know if there was a contributing, but I do know that we get more inquiries some years than others. I think 2 years ago, we had a lot of questions about this time of year.
All right. So in the interest of time, we'll keep moving to, I think, the last one. Okay, last one. And this is me presenting it, right? So newly planted apple, Fuji, suspected the yard is quite shady and possibly the tree was planted too deep. Homeowners in my office weekly with a different gardening crisis. So this, you can see this. I'll actually give you a closer up. All right. So these structures on the apple, what do you think? Are these critter or not? I think this is the final one. Then we got a little fun stuff we're going to show you from the year really quickly, and then get to our BOLOs fairly quickly so that Charlotte can present about plants. So let's see. We got man, people are really excited about this one. And all right. So in the interest of time, we'll give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's end the poll there. And we can share the results. The critter at 85% with the majority, next microbe at 12% and not at 3%. And then some people said it was a pest or plant pest at 52% rather than 48% for non-pests. So what do we have here? These are the pupae of parasitoid wasps in the family Eulophidae, likely that were attacking a caterpillar. So technically, they are a critter, but they are a non-pest because they're friendly. They're attacking caterpillars that might feed on the plant. And this is just my time also for the final one to plug this book. Charlie Eisman is a friend of mine. We published together and worked together. And I'm not plugging his book just to make him more money, but he is an amazing naturalist. And he wrote this really great guide to tracks and signs of insects and other invertebrates that shows all the cocoons and the fecal matter and damage and things like that. I really, really recommend people get that if they're going to be out there doing this stuff, because as you see on page 91, under pupae and exuviae, you have this nice little mass of eulophid pupae. So matching exactly what we were seeing. So just a little plug for that book. And so great job, everyone. So time to tally up your responses. And Charlotte, if you want to launch a poll for A through E, how many did you get out of 20? And just we're tallying the first question, the first part of the question only. So did you get 17 to 20 right, 13 to 16, 19 to 12, 5 to 8 questions right, or 0 to 4 questions correct? Okay, somebody in the chat said 13. So, okay. I guess this is what we we're looking for. A nice, a nice peak, nice just even distribution across. So we got some 12s,
Yeah.
some 12s.
Not,
Nobody knew everything. Not very few people probably knew everything. So, and I will say we were stumped too on some of these, or at least, we had to do a bit of investigation and more questions and digging and asking questions. So as you'll see as you go along, you're going to have to get these things in photos in, and you're going to have to ask follow-up questions like, what does the underside of the leaf look like? Or what about this? Or what about that? So, all right. So I'm going to end the poll now. And so it looks like the majority of people got 9 to 12 correct, and it kind of tapering off at both ends. So very good. That seems, these are all very tricky, obviously. That's why we do this, because it's kind of fun. And so it's not, we don't expect people to get every single one of them. That the point is that they're kind of tricky. So anyway, well,
Matt, there was a
yeah.
request to share the title of Charlie's book again.
Oh, yes. So it is, let me go back. It is Tracks and Signs of Insects and Other Invertebrates. So there you go. So, and this will be in the recording, of course, so you can see it. Okay, so again, in the interest of time, we're going to go through a few fun and interesting finds from the past year. So this is kind of just a quiz for you all, just to throw something out there, but this is a very close up of something. and it's really interesting looking. It looks almost like jelly or candy or something like that. This makes me want candy for Halloween. And we get another shot of it. We've got this peeking out from the behind a leaf. This was a really cool specimen brought to us by a colleague in the turf lab whose wife was gardening in the hydrangeas and got stung by one of these saddleback caterpillars. So these are a stinging caterpillar, very beautiful little caterpillar, but that's also to help warn that it can sting, and you can see all these spines all over it. So this was really interesting. And then I happened to also go get contacted by Dr. Adrian Smith at the museum, and after Bugfest, some people gave him some more stinging caterpillars, and so I was able to go take some photos. And so just to show you how beautiful some of these are, here is a stinging rose caterpillar, another lima-coated, really beautiful insect. It looks like it's wearing pajamas, I think. And this is where I asked Charlotte and Ariyah if they can put that link in for the video about these caterpillars that Dr. Adrian Smith does, and definitely visit his channel. He's got some really amazing stuff out there. And so please check that out. Again, he's not making him money, just more plugging because it's really interesting. And then here's another close-up of something weird. And so this was a caterpillar that was brought to me, or sorry, I shouldn't have said. This is something that was brought to me by a client. I'm just really curious about it. And I shouldn't have said that because I revealed it, but not really, because this isn't actually a caterpillar, or it was. This is actually a caterpillar that was parasitized by inserted wasps. So this is the remnants of the caterpillar. It's kind of like a husk, a mummy. And what is this type of wasp lays a couple eggs on the caterpillar, and after the caterpillar starts to develop, they multiply into hundreds or thousands of these wasps inside the caterpillar, killing it, which is great for your garden because this caterpillar will be eating your plants, but not so good for the caterpillar. And I was lucky enough to have them emerge, and they did turn out to be this genus Cooperative, which is an inserted wasp. I'm hoping to process the photos of these little tiny wasps very soon. But thousands of these little wasps came out as one caterpillar on a plant. Also, another fun thing I saw this year was I took a photo in a very humid environment of a spittlebug, and it was really beautiful where you could see inside almost like a fish tank, and you could actually see the corkscrew of bubbles coming out of the anus. They produce the spittle masses from their anus, and usually it'd be very frothy, but this one was very clear, so I was able to actually see inside, and I just thought that was a really amazing phenomenon. Also, another cool thing I saw this year in abundance in the mountains were these little tiny small flatworms. They're very adorable with these little tiny eyes, pair of eyes, only about 5 millimeters long, less than a centimeter long or so, but very good predators, and they actually eat from their belly. Their mouth is on their belly, and so this cute little worm is actually wrapped up a little leaf hopper and is feeding on it. So kind of gross, kind of cute, all at the same time.
Oh, that must have been a slow leaf hopper.
Yeah, yeah, or a fast flatworm. No, once they get on it, they've got kind of their mucus and the stuff is very fast acting, I think. So it probably just stuck it on it and was able to wrap it up. And yeah, it's kind of horrifying, actually. Mike, you want to mention these two?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight a couple of interesting samples we had on the disease side this year. One was this Kubrick's blue star from Orange County, and I didn't have the photos from the site, but the client showed me at the door, and this plant was really hammered. And apparently others around were not, but it turned out to be a rust, a Coleosporium apocynaceum, probably the species. Of course, that relates to the host's family. But if you go one more picture there, Matt, you can see the close-up of what those rust pustules look like on the underside of the leaf. And this does have a spore stage that will repeat on Amsonia, so it can reinfect it, but then it has one that produces a spore that will blow on the wind, and if it's lucky, find the alternate host, which in this case are loblolly and longleaf pines, and there it causes a needle rust on the pines. And from there, another spore stage is produced that can come back and infect Amsonia. So that was kind of an interesting sample. Another one that was rather fascinating was this bean that came from Alexander County in September, so last month, and it was angular leaf spot, although these spots don't look all that angular, but they tend not to be, at least the literature says, when you're looking at the primary leaf the true leaves, so the unifoliate leaves are not going to necessarily be that angular, but it's caused by a Pseudocercospora griseola, a little bit unusual in that it forms. Go ahead to the next animation there. If you flip that leaf over, you'll see that there are all these little tufts where the fungus is sporulating. That's one characteristic of this. And if you look even closer, you can see the conidia or the spores that are produced. What was interesting about this is that it's really more of a tropical disease, but we do see it from time to time. So you won't find it, for example, in the Southeast Vegetable Production Handbook or in the North Carolina Ag Chem Manual, but it does show up once in a while. So those are just two kind of interesting cases that we had during this year 2025 that's coming to a close.
And the final thing we're going to show before our bolos real quickly is Mike and I were helping with the ag practicum on campus. We were walking around with students, Mike showing them diseases of ornamentals and I was showing them pests of ornamentals. It was really fun walking around. Got to right behind Gardner Hall and there's a pyracantha, firethorn, and I had thought it might have been some of the remnant woolly apple aphids, but
Meanwhile, I was walking away to look for the next thing, and then Matt calls back, Mike, come here.
Mike, come on, look at this thing. And on this dead branch was this beautiful cobalt fungus, this beautiful blue fungus, wood decay fungus. And I was just awestruck by this. I mean, so pretty. And just to show you a little closer, it is amazing. This is the natural color of this fungus. So really, really, really beautiful fungus. And Mike, if you want to, obviously you know more about this than I do.
It is wood decay fungus, but I can say that I think I saw it 20, 25 years ago when I lived in Mexico, but you don't really run across it that often, but it's a real treat when you do.
Great. All right. Well, again, we're kind of running out of time. We did a lot of stuff. I hope you all had fun with that. So let's just go into some bolos. I'm going to move through them quickly, and then I'll let Mike do his bolos for the pathogens. So let's see. So arthropod bolos, late fall and winter. So fall cankerworms. So it's a moth species. The females are wingless. They emerge in the fall. They climb up trees. The winged males come and mate with them, and then they lay eggs. These then turn into a inchworm that feeds on trees in the spring. So even though it's called a fall cankerworm, it's because of the adult activity in the fall and winter. You're going to have a lot of winter insects coming out. So winter crane flies, which really only come out in the fall and winter. You've got a lot of springtails, which on snow sometimes are called snow fleas, as well as some stone flies, things like that, that are only going to be seen over the winter, which is really interesting because most people don't ever think of critters being active in the winter versus the summer. So it's an interesting fauna. If you're bringing firewood into the home, note that the change in temperature can cause insects to emerge from it. So you'll get wood-boring beetles like these jewel beetles and sometimes wood-boring wasps like some of the wood wasps emerging in the home. So if you see some kind of beetle or thing inside the home abundantly and you're like, what's going on? It could be your firewood. Also, if you're celebrating Christmas with a Christmas tree, Fraser firs or whatnot, you may find insects and critters, hopefully not squirrels and whatnot, large animals in your Christmas trees. But when they cut them down, the aphids like Sonara, the giant conifer aphids, are feeding for a while. And then as the plant dries out, they start to leave the plant and kind of crawl around. Some people think they look like ticks or bed bugs. They worry about these things, but it's just from the Christmas tree, coming out from the Christmas tree. So be aware that they're there. It's more of a nuisance. They're not going to harm anybody, but they do make a mess because they're just crawling all over the place and dying. You're going to have a lot of household invaders still. They're active for now. Over the winter, they're going to calm down as they hibernate, and then in the spring, you're going to see them again. But these are the things, of course, like stink bugs, cockroaches, ladybugs, spiders, things like that, that are going to be a little bit active in the winter. And then you may have some opportunistic activity over the winter. So many fly species, for instance, are alive over the winter. Blowflies, fruit flies, and mosquitoes will, on warm days over the winter, will come out and become active. And so you may see these things and wonder where they're coming from. That's because the adults are just hanging out waiting for kind of a nice day to be active again. And with that, I will stop sharing and let Mike share his.
All right. Let's see. Just a few quick disease bolos here for the winter months. Trees and shrubs, first of all. As usual, many hosts are going to go down with Phytophthora and Armillaria root rots, not necessarily that the organisms are active this time of year, but the symptoms may show up. Looking under the bark there for the evidence of the mycelium of Armillaria is often a good thing to do. You may see on spruce trees some rhizosphere needle casts, so the needles falling off in the lower portion of the tree, and ones that shouldn't be falling off yet. And on privet, which nobody pays much attention to except when it's one of the few that's still green in the wintertime, there are Cercospora leaf spots in the broad sense, a couple of different fungi that can cause those related to Cercospora. And for anything severe weather, so as of course right now our thoughts and prayers are with the folks in Jamaica. The prime minister there said there is no infrastructure in the region that can withstand Category 5. So we are here not out of the woods as far as possible tropical weather. And of course, we could have some other things. My house was hit by a tornado on December 10th, 2023. So fortunately, very little damage. But be aware for your trees and shrubs to have them ready for severe weather that may occur. Ice storms as well. Boxwood, of course, has many problems. Boxwood blight, boxwood stem canker illustrated both of those here, the boxwood blight in the upper right. I think those were actually from greenery from a wreath. Boxwood stem canker here with a single stem or multiple stems, but they turn yellow and the leaves hang on. They don't drop off like with boxwood blight. And then root knot nematodes, other nematodes, root rot can be problems in boxwood as well, underground. Indian hawthorn, of course, entomosporium leaf spot, really common on that. The bright red spots that you see here in the middle. And with roses, apart from armillaria, which we mentioned before, be on the lookout for possible rose rosette even this time of year. As the trees are dropping leaves, some things will show up that we may not pay as much attention to, like black knot on our plums, apricots, black cherries. You see there on the photo on the right. And multiple kinds of trees and shrubs may get septibasidium or felt fungus, which is actually growing on colonies of scale insects that have infested the bark. And wildlife damage can occur, such as voles and the sapsuckers that Matt already talked about earlier today. In the vegetable garden, not a lot going on, but with our crucifers, we could be seeing the bacterial disease called black rot caused by Xanthomonas. That's the photograph here on the upper left. Typically, or classically, these V-shaped lesions on the margins, but doesn't always look like that. Sclerotinia stem rot can do a lot of damage on our crucifers. Here, the picture I thought was collards. You can see it there, both the rot and then here's the fungus growing out, a little bit of mycelium there on that petiole. White spot of turnip and Cercospora leaf spot of Swiss chard beet, spinach, and I guess turnip as well. These turnips here had both of those last two diseases on them when they came in. And the flower beds, the rust and powdery mildews will be starting to shut down with the colder weather. You may still see some though, and of course cold injury as the freezes begin. Our pansies, which we trust for overwinter joy and color, watch out for black root rot, Phytophthora root and crown rot, Pythium root rot, and then once things start to warm up a little bit in the late winter, we could be seeing the botrytis blight on flowers and foliage. Turf grass, fairy ring any time of year, any turf grass, large patch on the warm season grasses now stressed by the cold temperatures, and yellow patch is another possibility also in the winter months. Again, as always, if you're sitting by the fireside and there's nothing good on TV, you can pull out your web browser and click on our BOLOs for more information on these month by month through the year.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt and Mike. That was an excellent roundup to the year. Always, always so interesting, informative, and fun to do Critter or Not. And with that, I'll keep it rolling and we'll go straight into our Plant These for Pollinators. So this has been a new feature for this season, which we will be continuing next year. And it's featured different plants that are excellent resources for pollinators, providing nectar and pollen, and that have different things that grow throughout the year and bloom throughout the year. So you have a continuous supply, which is really important. And what we want to provide pollinators is not just one time of the year when everything's in bloom, but we want stuff blooming all throughout the growing season. And when we think about the very early and late part of the growing season, when a lot less things are in bloom, those are really critical times that we want to booster the number of plants in our landscape. And if you are trying to boost your late season flower power, I encourage you to look at asters. They're a wonderful group of plants. You may probably have for many years just known that all of them were asters and the genus was Aster. It was one that was nice and easy to pronounce. But a few years back, the genus Aster was kind of pulled apart and put into several, the species were put into several different genera. And many of our North American natives end up in Saphiotrichum. So if that is a kind of new genus name to you, that is a relatively new name for many of our aster species. So Symphyiotrichum, they're all herbaceous perennials. As I mentioned, or I believe maybe all of them in Symphyiotrichum are native to North America. And we have over 60 species of these Symphyiotrichum throughout the southeastern United States. And here in North Carolina, at least half of those occur. So it's a really diverse genus. And the plants in general bloom, some of them starting in like midsummer, but many of them in late summer, fall, and well into late fall. They're really some of our latest blooming native perennials. And they typically either have white flowers, blue, purple, or lavender flowers. So in those shades, some of them can tend a little pinkish looking. And I would definitely stand by the statement that there is an aster for every garden. So I think if you start exploring this genus, you'll find there's quite a few that prefer sun, but there are some really nice ones that prefer shade or will tolerate shade. Most of our Symphyiotrichum grow quite well in well-drained soil, but some of them are adapted to moist or even wet sites. So whether you have sun or shade, dry or wet areas, you should be able to find an aster that'll work for you. Also, size-wise, some of them are rather tall, kind of upright growers. Others tend to make kind of a cushion where they are wider than they are tall. And depending on the species, you could be looking at plants that range anywhere from a foot to 5 feet or more in height when they are full size. So definitely something out there to fit every space and type of garden. And I chose the picture here for this is what's called calico aster, which is Symphyiotrichum latiflorum, because it shows one of what I think is kind of a endearing feature of asters. Some of them more prominently than others will change color. The center of the flower will change color after it's been pollinated. And I think this is most prominent in calico aster. And you can see some of the ones where the center, which is the nectar and pollen bearing structures, the fertile part of the flower where the bees and other pollinators are visiting, where it's yellow, those are the newly opened flowers that haven't been pollinated yet. And you see others, the centers turn this kind of pinkish color, and those have already been pollinated. It's kind of a signal to the pollinators, you don't need to waste your time here. And it also leads to the common name calico aster because you get this kind of polka dot appearance like the original kind of calico fabrics with the polka dot look of the white and pink centers. So it's a great plant as well, calico aster, if you're looking for an aster to add to your landscape. And asters, in addition to, just being very adaptable and a diverse genus, they are what are considered a keystone species. So when we talk about keystone species, we're talking about plants or animals or other organisms that are so important and support so many other things or affect so many other things throughout the ecosystem that if they were to be gone, it would be devastating. And a lot of times when we talk about plants, we're thinking about things like oak trees as being keystone species, but there are some herbaceous plants, like we talked about goldenrod or solidago last month. Goldenrod and asters are both considered keystone herbaceous species just because of the vast number of lepidopterans they support as the larval hosts. So those would be the caterpillars of butterflies and moths. Then there's everything that feeds on the caterpillars, such as birds, which also feed on the seeds of asters. Then, of course, pollinators. Pollinators, many, many different types, and a very wide range of pollinators will visit asters, not only because they are one of the few things still blooming at this time of the year, but because they also are a rich source of pollen and nectar. So you get both long and short-tongued native bees, you get honeybees. They're really important for migrating monarchs, especially those that maybe were a little late to get on the journey, as well as other butterflies and skippers. And if you watch an aster plant in bloom this time of year, especially on a sunny day, you will see all kinds of activity on it. I do want to point out one specific species, which is called aromatic aster, or Symphyotrichum oblongifolium. And this is probably one of the most adaptable species and just generally tough, very reliable performer, and just a nice shape, and in addition to be a late bloomer for landscapes. It's a great alternative to mums. It actually does kind of have that cushiony growth habit that mums do, but a little bit larger. This one occurs throughout the Great Plains and into the Mid-Atlantic region. It's some of the mountains of North Carolina, it's rare, but it's more common, especially in Virginia, Pennsylvania, but it grows very well here as a landscape plant. It is currently in bloom, at least here in the Piedmont. It started blooming late September, and it'll typically going until frost. So it'll just, until, frost shuts it down, it'll typically keep blooming. It has these lavender blue or purple or flowers, depending on the light and your interpretation of where does something cross from blue to purple. To me, they look kind of lavender blue. And it is very drought tolerant. So it's a great plant for well-drained soils. It grows very well in clay soil as long as it's not somewhere that just sits wet for long periods of time. And it is going to be best in full sun. So in more shade, it'll be a little more sparsely bloomed and a little less dense. One of the nice things about it compared to some other popular asters like New England asters is it is not susceptible to powdery mildew. So it is, relatively resilient and disease and pest free. And it is even rarely browsed by deer and rabbits. It does have more of a fragrance to the foliage, hence the name aromatic aster, which maybe helps deter deer and rabbits. There are some other types of asters which they can really enjoy nibbling on. And if you're looking for aromatic aster, there's a couple of varieties that you'll probably run across. There's Raden's Favorite, which is here in the picture, and it's a little bit taller, and then another one named October Skies. They're quite similar overall, it's just October Skies is a little lower growing, so a little more compact. And the other thing I want to point out about asters and many of our herbaceous perennials is it's not just about the flowers. The flowers are super important for supporting pollinators, but we also have pollinators that use the stems as nesting habitat. So there's around 100 species of our bees found in North Carolina. We have 560 species that have been documented in the state. But around 100 of them use the stems of plants to nest, so to lay their young and to create the nest that will be next season's generation. So these include things like the small carpenter bee, which is Seratina in the picture, the bottom picture here. So this is quite a different bee than the normal carpenter bee that you'll see drilling into wood. These Seratina bees will just go into these old stems. Other bees that have been documented using stems are mast bees, leafcutter bees, and these are all solitary bees. So they're not something that you need to worry. It's not like honeybees or some of our bumblebees that form hives. So they don't have a response where they would come in mass to try to defend a hive. They're just living solitarily, even though they will lay their eggs in these little chambers you see where they hollow out the stem. They'll put an egg, they'll put a little ball of pollen, they'll make a separator, and they'll keep going up the stem. So you'll have several chambers the length of the stem that will hatch out in the next season to be the next generation of bees. So they do only use those old or dead stems. These are stems that grew in the last growing season. They're not going to attack living plant tissue. So they're definitely not a plant pest. So you may have heard the campaign to leave the leaves. So leave your leaves where they fall because of all of the beneficial microbes and insects and things they support. So another slogan is to save the stems. So in addition to leave the leaves, we want to save the stems to provide this nesting habitat. And so when you're in the landscape this fall, instead of cutting your perennials back at ground level, go about 12 to 24 inches, so a foot or two above ground level, and make those cuts. So you'll have, just the brown stem standing, which can be an advantage because it lets you know where those plants are. If you have a habit of forgetting where things are in the winter when they're dormant. So leaving those stems will mean they're in place next spring and summer when the stem nesting bees are out looking for a place to lay their eggs, and they'll be available to them to use as nesting habitat. So you can do that this fall. You can wait deeper into the winter, which would give birds time to feed on the seeds, but typically you want to finish up your trimming before the last spring frost. And this is just a picture from my garden of a Rudbeckia species, quite a tall one, where I've left the stems. So I've made those cuts up here at the top rather than going down here at the bottom, which is what I was doing before I learned about this. So I've definitely changed my practices in my perennial plant trimming and maintenance. And so what you would look at next year when you have these stems, if you're curious, if anything's using them, look down onto the top of that cut in, and you'll see if something's using it, you'll see a hole drilled into it. So they're drilling into the center, which is kind of a spongy material called pith. So they just kind of drill that out, and they make a nice little cavity in there to put their eggs and to make those chambered nests. So after a few years, those bees will, of course, hatch out, depending on the species. As they mature, they'll hatch out. And after a few years, these old stems will naturally disintegrate. So you don't have to worry about going back and removing them at some point. Just let nature take its course. And then each year when you trim, just leave that, trim that year's set of stems to about 12 or 24 inches. And if you want to learn more about this, which is quite exciting because this research by Elsa Youngstead and Hannah Levinson here at NC State was supported by NC State Extension Master Gardener volunteers in several counties across North Carolina, collected stems and sent them in, and Hannah and Elsa, looked to see which type of stems bees were using and what type of bees were there. And they have produced a series of educational materials, including an extension publication, which the graphic here comes from, that's available about garden cleanup for pollinators, that goes into a lot more depth. They've made a great little 4-minute video that demonstrates trimming your stems the right way for pollinator habitat. And Elsa was our guest speaker last year with Plants, Pests, and Pathogens in the June webinar, and she talked about this research and their findings. So you can go back and review that. And there was an article in our annual report a year or so ago as well that highlighted Master Gardener volunteers' support of this research. So lots of places to learn more. We'll include all of these in the resources document that'll go out with the recording. And of course, if you want to explore those asters, the many different types of asters, find the right one for your landscape, the Plant Toolbox is an excellent tool. It has, I believe, over 20 different species of Symphyiotrichum, as well as other former Aster genus of plants that were in the Aster genera. And we will wrap it up with just a few announcements to finish out our year. This, of course, is our final Plants, Pests, and Pathogens for 2025, but we do have one more continuing education webinar planned on fire resilient landscaping. And we hope you can join us on Monday, November 10th. Hannah Thompson-Welch, who's a wildfire mitigation specialist with the NC Forest Service, will specifically be talking about plants related to fire resilient landscape, which ones are more resistant to fire and which ones are more susceptible, and how you place those in your yard to hopefully reduce the chance of fire spreading to your home. That is posted on the EFG internet, so I encourage you to register and join us. There is one more of the Gardens, Lawns, and Landscapes online courses starting in November, actually starting November 1st. These are led by Dr. Scott Zona. So if you're looking to increase your knowledge about lawn management and weeds, this will be a great time to do it. That course will run from November 1st to December 15th, and registration is now open. As a reminder, there is a discount for Extension Master Gardener volunteers, and ask your agent for the discount code. As Ariyah mentioned at the open, we would love to have your feedback about plants, pests, and pathogens this season, as well as your suggestions for what you would like to see next season. So we do have our evaluation open now, and we will be sending this link out as well with the follow-up. But please take a few minutes in the next week or two to share your feedback and let us know what you'd like to hear next year. And if you do need continuing education hours, of course, we're getting towards the end of the year. Master Gardener volunteers are required to complete 10 continuing education hours throughout the year. Of course, Plants, Pests, and Pathogens helps fulfill those hours. But if you need to get a few more, or you just want to go back and catch up on a webinar you missed, or review one that you found particularly interesting, all of our recordings are posted for this season and past seasons. You can find them both on YouTube as well as on the NC-EMG intranet. And that's also where you'll find things like the season for next year when we get it posted, as those will be posted on the EMG intranet calendar, as well as we have a page dedicated to plants, pests, and pathogens where you can download a schedule. That will probably be early January when we have those all lined up and ready for you to save the date. And with that, we'll wrap up. We said thank you to everybody for a great season. Go ahead and mark your calendar now. Our next Plants, Pests, and Pathogens, the 2026 season, will resume February 24th. And we all look forward to seeing you then and wish you very happy remaining of the year through the winter, through the holidays. And we'll be really glad to see you back again in February.
Thanks,
you.
everyone. This is a lot of fun. It's always fun for us to present and see all the invited speakers as well.
Yep. And I think, what is this now? 16 years under our belt? I've lost track.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
have to look it up. I would have
No-
to go back and look it up myself.
Well, everyone also have a great holiday season and stay warm out there as it gets cool out. And we're looking forward to seeing you all in the spring.